So I just started to read a wonderful book called Judaism is About Love, but written by Rabbi Shai Held. Though there are probably many things that inspired Rabbi Held to write this book. I think one reason that he wrote this book, and he even alludes to it in the introduction to his book, is that Christian theologians teach that there's a fundamental difference between Judaism and Christianity. From their point of view, Christianity is a religion about love, and Judaism is a religion about laws. So, in a beautiful, compelling way, Rabbi Held is trying to make the argument that this differentiation between Christianity being a religion of love and Judaism being a religion of laws misses the mark. And that's why he starts with the title of the book, that Judaism is about love. You know, this is an idea I've always embraced and understood. I understood it from the first time as a child I learned the Shema, which asks us to love God with all of our heart, with all our soul, and with all of our might. And this prayer is not the only prayer in our liturgy that asks us to love God, even though it's one of the central prayers of our liturgy. Earlier tonight, we sang Lecha Dodi. Lecha Dodi is essentially a moment where we sing to welcome God into our lives, like a groom standing in a chuppah, waiting for the bride to come down the aisle. And there are lots of other songs, prayers we sang, which speaks to God's love for us. We sang Ahavat Olam, which speaks to God's eternal love. It's there in the darkness. It's there when we go to sleep. It's there when we wake up. It accompanies us throughout our lives. You know, I could go on and speak to the many, many prayers and teachings in our liturgy and in our Torah about love. And if you read Rabbi Held's book, I'm sure you'll learn all of them. But there's more to it than that in Judaism, because there really is an aspect of Judaism that really focuses on laws. So let's take a minute to explore why the Christian theologians thought that Judaism is about laws and not love. Well, if we were to study and recite the second paragraph of the Shema, which we don't recite in Beth and in many of the Reform prayer books, it's left out, you find that there's a lot in the Torah that speaks to the importance of divine law and following divine commandments. So here's a little portion of the second paragraph of the Shema. Take care not to be lured away to serve other gods and bow to them, for the Lord's anger will flare up against you, and he will shut up the skies, so there will be no rain on the ground, and the ground will not yield its produce, and you will soon perish from the good land that the Lord is assigning you. Wow, that's pretty strong. It says, if you don't follow commandments, you're going to die. And I bet some of you are thinking, I don't have to worry about this. We don't worship any other gods nowadays, so I have nothing to worry about. But the reality is, unfortunately, many people worship other gods. Some people ascribe excessive value and worship their possessions as if they're gods. And some people worship wealth and power instead of traveling on a spiritual path to find their godlike self within. These things, like worshiping our possessions and worshiping power and wealth, are really idol worship, and they're a form of following other gods. Even in last week's Torah portion, we visited the impact of not following the rules. It's the part where these two ecstatic sons of Aaron, Nadav and Abihu, young priests, they go into the newly formed Mishkan with what is called strange fire, incense, hands not prepared according to the way the priestly rules say they're supposed to be prepared. So they go into the tent with violating the rules of the priesthood, They're consumed in fire. This is just one of the many places the Torah teaches us that there are consequences to not following the commandments and the divine laws as laid out in the Torah. So the dilemma we face is we have two conflicting ideas. I told you about all the prayers about God and loving God, and now I'm giving you all these ideas that God does bad things to us if we don't follow the rules. So which is it? Is Judaism a religion of love, or is Judaism a religion of laws? Well, the obvious answer is it's both, right? That's the obvious answer. But I want to take this to a little deeper level, not just stop there. Because for me, rules and regulations about not following them are not just about rules. They're a form of loving kindness. Just take a minute and think about what our world would be like if there were no rules, or what your home would have been like raising children with no rules and no structure. I can't imagine what the world would be like. It would be a bunch of chaos. The house at home would be kids running around, not understanding any of the structure and the way the world's supposed to be, and the world at large would be in chaos. And there are rules about rituals, like the rules about Shabbat services, the rules about doing Passover Seders. These are all rules that create the sense of community that we so treasure in being Jewish. A culture without rules would be a culture in chaos. Creating a world with no rules or standards is definitely not loving. I think there is a difficult part of creating rules, and we find this in parenting, we find this in our government. It's creating rules that are fair and just and allow growth and creativity to flourish without allowing chaos to occur. The Jewish people's sets of rules is written in the Torah. The Torah was given to us as a loving gesture by God, who is described in the Torah in this way. These are the attributes of God. God is compassionate, gracious, slow to anger, abounding in kindness and faithfulness, extending kindness to the 1,000th generation, bearing iniquity, transgression, and sin. Wow. God is compassionate, gracious, and slow to anger. That doesn't sound like a God who would create a way of life in the Torah that's arbitrary and unfair. These are attributes that describe a loving God. When we return the Torah to the ark after the Torah is read, we sing the words of the Eitz Chaim He prayer. It's a prayer that's in gratitude and appreciation of the divine gift that the Torah is. And here are some of the words of the prayer Eitz Chaim He, which I hope we get a chance to sing in the near future at Beth. The Torah is a tree of life to all those who hold fast to it. All who cling to it find happiness. Its ways are ways of pleasantness, and all its paths are peace. Help us, guide us, inspire us, and provide us with the wisdom your Torah can show. Cause us to learn, renew, and return, just in the days as in the days of old. When I sing those words of the prayer during services, it's always a very poignant moment for me. Sometimes I get kind of choked up, because after the intimate moments of reading the Torah, reading it, kissing it, we sing these words as a loving farewell as it's getting closed up in the ark. A loving farewell to something that was such a great gift to the Jewish people and to the world. Both the Eitz Chaim prayer and God's attributes that are part of our Torah provide us with some guidance on how to create rules that are loving, just, and kind. Our task is to embrace the ways that the Torah teaches us, and to embrace the idea that laws and rules are there to make the world better. They are ideally given with love as a way to free people to function in a dependable world. They're not created to arbitrarily control or oppress us or our children, and God forbid, oppress the unempowered members of our society. Unfortunately, this is not always the case. How wonderful it would be if our legislatures and every young parent were given the attributes of God to read each day and think about before they assume the awesome responsibility of creating rules and structures for their children or for others to live by. How great would it be if our political leaders sang the Eitz Chaim prayer and embraced these teachings from the Torah? I can only begin to imagine how good the world would be if all the rules were created with these thoughts in mind: being compassionate, gracious, slow to anger, abounding in kindness and faithfulness, extending kindness to the thousandth generation. How wonderful the world would be if our rules and ways of life were ways of pleasantness and peace. In reflecting back on this, I think that Rabbi Hield is right. Judaism is about laws. And if anything, the rules and laws that are part of our tradition are one of the best ways that love is expressed. Our tradition is about love, and rules allow us to live in a world filled with safety and justice, a world in which love can flourish and grow, a world in which we do not have to live in fear of the chaos that surrounds us. It's hard not to see the wisdom of the words of the Shema. It's really hard not to love God with all of our heart and all of our soul and all of our might, because despite all the imperfections in the world that we have created in partnership with God, the world gives us a lot to be thankful for. We're all given big hearts filled with the capacity to love. My hope and blessing for this Shabbat is that we all find ways to express this love to all that we know and all we meet. That's the solution to the divisiveness and all of the disorder in the world today, to just bring love into it. We started our prayer service tonight with Olam Chesed Yibaneh. And we started it for a reason, because that's what we need to do. We need to bring love into this world, even in the way we create rules that establish justice and order. May this be a week in which we rededicate ourselves to the task of building a world which is just, filled with laws that are created with loving kindness. Shabbat Shalom.